Minister for answering the urgent question. Urgent question, Stephanie Peacock.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Transport to make a statement on the imminent closure of Doncaster Sheffield Airport.
Here's here.
Minister Catherine Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Following the strategic review of the airport announced in July this year by the government, is incredibly disappointed that Peel Group have taken the difficult decision to announce the potential closure of Doncaster Sheffield Airport. Whilst this was a commercial decision made by the owners of the airport, I fully appreciate that this decision has had on passengers who use the airport and include the constituents represented by many members and honourable members here today in the South Yorkshire region, but also crucially those businesses and organisations who people that work at the airport and within the supply chain. Madam Deputy Speaker, as I know from growing up underneath the Manchester Airport flight path, regional airports are key in serving our local communities and supporting thousands of jobs in the regions, and they act as a key gateway to international opportunities. So during the pandemic, the government supported airports through schemes such as the AGOS Air and Ground Operational Support Scheme, through which Doncaster Sheffield Airport was able to access grant funding. I need to be clear that while the UK government supports airports, it does not own or operate them. However, devolved administrations, local and combined authorities are frequently shareholders in airports which serve their communities, as in the case with Manchester Airports Group, Birmingham Airport, London Luton and most recently Teesside International. The UK aviation market operates predominantly in the private sector. Airports invest in their infrastructure to attract airlines and passengers, and we will continue to support all parties here to seek a commercial or local solution. Since the announcement by Peel Group on the future on the 13th, the government has been actively working with local stakeholders to encourage a future for aviation at the site. And my honourable friend for Don Valley and the Department for Transport have met with Peel, and I understand the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority and Doncaster City Council have been working during the review to explore options for a locally led solution to the airport. These local authorities have now written to Peel Group to pass on the details and are interested to those who are interested with potential options to invest in the airport, and I understand Peel has planned to engage with these parties. The Aviation Minister, Baroness Veer, met with Peel on the 19th of October, where she strongly encouraged them to look seriously at any commercial interest. And the Aviation Minister, she's also been proactively encouraging Peel Group to strongly consider local and combined authorities' offers of bridging support if they require extra time to take forward any discussions with investors. The government remains engaged, and we look forward we look forward to kind of seeing further progress. So the House today highlights the importance of Doncaster and the strength of feelings in the members here, which I will convey to the Aviation Minister, Baroness Veer, as she continues her work. But to conclude, I want to call on Peel Group to continue to work with stakeholders to find a commercial solution or to minimise the impact of its review of the airport. Thank you, Madam.
Stephanie Peacock.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Doncaster Sheffield Airport is an important regional economic asset with thousands of jobs dependent on it. Despite Peel Group announcing its closure, local leaders have made every effort to work with the group and to press the government to secure the airport's future. The South Yorkshire Mayor made Peel Group an offer of public money to keep the airport running. They have also helped to find 3 potential investors who are seriously interested in keeping the airport operational. But at every turn, these efforts have been met with resistance. Having already run the airport down, Peel Group are still refusing to confirm whether they are willing to suspend the closure or whether they are even in a position to sell DSA Limited. Meanwhile, the Secretary of State, who could not even be bothered to turn up today, will not engage with interested parties and is refusing to invoke powers like the Civil Contingencies Act to protect the airport. She refused to meet with local leaders 3 times on the floor of this House and is yet to respond to a petition of over 125,000 people. Despite assurances from the outgoing Prime Minister that the Secretary of State would address the issue immediately and protect the airport. Actions speak louder than words. Having created a climate of uncertainty, both the Peel Group and the government are not using the powers and influence they have to explore every option to ensure the airport's future. This is not good enough for workers, for businesses and for all of us who rely on the emergency services stationed at the airport. I'd like to thank Doncaster Council, the South Yorkshire Mayor, the members for Doncaster Central, Doncaster North and Sheffield Heeley. Local leaders want the government to work with us rather than taking a hands-off approach. Potential investors in the airport need certainty in the next 24 hours. It is now imperative that ministers step up, take action and use their powers to do everything they can to save Doncaster Sheffield Airport.
Minister.
The Honourable Lady speaks with passion and partisanship in not mentioning the Honourable Member for Don Valley, and his speaking is a little bit late to the party. Even a cursory glance at his social media feed will see that he's on day 105 of his campaign to save Doncaster Airport. He's met with a series of different parties, and I think it's slightly beneath the not to recognise his efforts to protect his local community. Baroness Veer, the Aviation Minister, has met with Peel on the 19th of October, and they assure her that they are open to meeting with potential investors. The Secretary of State have met with Peel twice, and the implication that we're not doing everything to find a solution for regional airports that we recognise are incredibly important is not a correct one. I'm sure the Civil Contingencies Act will turn up, but I'll just allude to it briefly, and the rest of the questions that we have today. But the Civil Contingencies Act is for absolute emergencies only, and one of the operators, even within, has written to the Prime Minister to explain that they can still find contingency efforts elsewhere. So the threshold for the Labour government's legislation has nowhere near been met.
Chair of the Transport Select Committee, Hugh Merriman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This was also an issue that came up in the Transport Select Committee session with the Secretary of State. We asked the Secretary of State whether there would be any intervention. She made clear it wouldn't be financial, but all technical assistance would be offered, with the hope that there would be a solution very similar to Teesside Airport, where the Mayor of Tees Valley found a solution. Can I just ask, perhaps without the disrespect from the sidelines, the Minister, if she could provide more detail as to what that technical assistance could be for those of us in this chamber that don't think this is a laughing matter?
Minister.
I thank the Chair of the Select Committee for his question. He will forgive me that if, with not sitting on the aviation portfolio, I don't commit at this dispatch box to things that aren't exactly accurate, and I'll ask Baroness Veer to write to him with the specifics of the technical assistance. But what I do know is that there's been repeated meetings at a number of different levels. When it comes to regional airports, I think he makes a good point. As I outlined in my opening remarks, Manchester, Liverpool, Tees Valley, amongst others, have local authorities investing to support a commercial solution, and that is an option available to the South Mayoral Combined Authority and Doncaster City Council in this case.
Shadow Secretary of State, Louise Hay.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I like the Honourable Lady opposite very much, and I wish her well in her ministerial duties, but she's not the Aviation Minister. The Secretary of State should be here today to answer this urgent question. We have a critical regional airport that is days away from closure, and the Secretary of State cannot be bothered to turn up. What message does it send to the people of South Yorkshire, 125,000 of whom signed a petition to keep this airport open, that the Secretary of State will not attend a chamber and cannot even attend meetings with South Yorkshire MPs and leaders in order to discuss how we can protect Doncaster Sheffield Airport? The government has repeatedly refused to meet with the Mayor of South Yorkshire and with other regional leaders to discuss what options are open. It is truly a slap in the face to the hundreds of people whose jobs currently hang in the balance. Madam Deputy Speaker, when the Prime Minister, for the next few hours at least, came to Yorkshire, she gave a commitment on behalf of her government to protect Doncaster Sheffield Airport. That commitment must outlast her government, not least because this particular airport is of strategic significance, one of the longest runways in Britain, the base for the National Police Air Service, and a home for National Coast Guard operations. Now, thanks to the leadership of the Mayor of South Yorkshire, credible investors have been identified. But it is obvious that Peel never had any intention of negotiating in good faith. So it is not an option to Doncaster Council or the Mayor of South Yorkshire to purchase shares in the airport, given that they are refusing to sell. They are willing to let the airport close, infrastructure be degraded, and any chance of it being reopened in the future removed. So the case for action from the government is crystal clear. The use of emergency powers under the Civil Contingency Act is the only possible measure to keep this airport running. Potential investors have made clear that the Secretary of State's refusal to use those powers is creating far greater uncertainty and instability and is making purchase at any point in the future even more unlikely. So can the Minister outline precisely why the Secretary of State has refused to consider the use of the Act? This decision is a political one, so it's beholden on her to explain to the people of South Yorkshire why she refuses to use it. And if she continues to refuse, will she lay out what powers exist anywhere else that could keep this airport running? Madam Deputy Speaker, there is less than a week left to save this airport, as we await the third Prime Minister in 7 weeks. If this government doesn't take the action that South Yorkshire desperately needs it to, then they will conclude that this is final proof that the Tories' levelling up agenda is dead.
Minister.
The message to the people of South Yorkshire is that they have an incredibly strong local champion in the MP for Don Valley, who has been working tirelessly to make it happen from day one. My friend, the previous aviation minister that's out here today, I believe has already met with the Combined Authority, and she asks, where does the power lie? The power lies with the Labour mayoral Combined Authority, the local council. OK, well, let me address the civil contingent. So it was introduced by the Blair government, and when the minister introducing put it to the House, it was envisaged to be used in only the most serious of circumstances, and I quote him, would be used rarely, if ever, and no government has used it in 18 years. This is the opposition across. You brought a law in that wasn't serious. That would astonish me for the Labour Party. What you're actually doing is you are trying to find a piece of politicking instead of sitting there. Sorry. First go, Madam Deputy Speaker. You are. What? The honourable lady opposite will forgive me. It's my first go, so I'll take it in. The what? I tell you what we need is for Peel Group to sit down with the commercial people, and that's what they promised to do when they sat down with the Aviation Minister on the 19th of October.
Nick Fletcher.
Doncaster's champion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I believe the in question has been raised today to take away from the fact there's an adjournment debate tonight. They have actually shown interest in this for the very first time. We've had a combined authority that has been sadly lacking for over 3 years, and the people will learn the truth tonight about that. I have members on the other side of this room who have only shown an interest in the last fortnight. Certain members on that side of the with hundreds of thousands of likes on their Facebook account who pin their books to their page rather than share the petition to save our airport should sit in disgrace. Shameful. Now, will the Minister agree with me that if the Combined Authority had done their job properly, we would not be sat in this position now?
I think the honourable member for Don Valley gives a wonderful preview of tonight's adjournment debate, and I look forward to it greatly.
SNP spokesperson Gavin Newland.
Thank you much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I warned many times, while the attention was disproportionately on the Heathrows and Gatwicks of the world, the perilous position of regional airports whose COVID recovery is far slower was being ignored. The closure of Doncaster Sheffield is a blow to vital regional connectivity. What is, indeed, where is the government strategy for regional connectivity? Regional connectivity is not just about flights to London, which the current PSO legislation solely supports. They're always first to go when slots are needed for more lucrative routes. Direct regional links with European and global destinations have to be the priority. And I've also said many times that retail is a much higher proportion of regional airports' revenues, but we've seen VAT-free shopping at point of sale abolished, which was to be replaced by a less generous VAT reclaimable scheme, but this has also been abandoned. I would ask that this is looked at again. But at the very least the government must look at arrivals duty-free, which has cross-party support. Will it do so? And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, what plans does the Minister or her colleagues have to meet with regional airports, including Glasgow and my constituency, to find out and act on what they need rather than what Greater London wants?
Minister.
I think the honourable gentleman may be able to guess from my accent that London isn't always at the forefront of my mind when making decisions. As you well know, Doncaster Airport doesn't have any domestic internal flights within it, and airlines will set those up as primarily from a private perspective of commerciality. I agree with him on the importance of regional connectivity, and in terms of how communities can best work together to engage what airports want and how regional connectivity works, I would refer him to models mentioned previously where other airports are a mixture of private and local engagement, which then really grounds operations within it. On the position on the VAT, I'm afraid I'll have to write to him rather than commit a snafu at the dispatch box.
Michael Gove.
The Minister alluded to the Civil Contingencies Act earlier. She knows, indeed the whole House knows, this is a very specific piece of legislation only intended to be invoked in the face of either a military assault, a terrorist attack or an unprecedented threat to the life of the nation. It is frivolous for the opposition to invoke it in this way, and they know that were it to be invoked by her or by any other minister, it would be subject to judicial review and struck down in the courts. Can she remind us, is there anywhere else a combined mayoral authority that has actually constructively acquired an airport, and might the person who have done it been a Conservative who is more interested in delivering for people than in posturing on the floor of this House?
Minister.
I think it's important to commend hugely the important work that's been happening at Doncaster Airport from the National Police Air Service Fixed Wing, but also from the 2XL, the commercial company that in no small part is a preventative for oil spills and other important environmental protections. I would point out to the honourable gentleman that not only is he correct in terms of the scale of intervention required for the Civil Contingencies Act, but that actually 2XL have confirmation that they can meet their contracts and meet their determinations in a different way with contingency plans, even further lowering it. So I would thank them for their service, but this is not the nature of the emergency that I think that the previous holder of the title of Chancellor of Duchy in Lancaster in 2004 set it up for.
Dan Jarvis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I should declare an interest as the first South Yorkshire Mayor, and for 4 years I dealt with the complexities of the airport. So I'm trying to be constructive and I'm trying to help the Minister out. She did say just a moment ago that the powers were invested in the Mayor. I'd be grateful if she could say a little bit more about what she thinks those powers are, because I think there is some confusion about that. So I'd be grateful if she could clarify that. More generally, I know that she understands there's huge concern about the potential closure of Doncaster Sheffield Airport and the impact it would have not just on Doncaster, but right across our region. There is cross-party agreement about the importance of trying to keep the airport open, but there is also an acknowledgement that time is running very short. This is an important matter, and therefore, can I just appeal to the Minister? We do need to sit down and have a proper meeting that brings together MPs from both sides of the House, all of whom want the airport to stay open. And I can't understand why the Secretary of State or why the Minister won't meet with us. That would seem to be the right thing to do. And even at this late stage, I really hope, on a cross-party basis with the member opposite, we can sit down and work together. The members opposite couldn't have been clearer about that, so we can work together and see what can be done even at this late stage to keep the airport open.
Minister.
In terms of what a mayor acting in the interests of his local community could do, perhaps he would permit me to ask Ben Houchin to maybe set something out for you rather than me talk out about it. In terms of meetings, as I've pointed out previously, there have been a series of meetings. I see the previous aviation minister and the current aviation minister have met with Peel, they've met with local businesses affected, they've met with the businesses that are in the area, and they're continuing to do so, and any cross-party effort is welcome. And I would look forward to, if he can have any word with local leadership to kind of engage them over a longer period of time than they have been engaged.
Robert Court.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I declare my interest as the previous aviation minister that's been referred to today. I think once the political bluster is over, actually we're all on the same page in this, Madam Deputy Speaker. We all have the undoubted understanding of the value of regional airports to areas like Doncaster and Sheffield. But would the Minister agree that whilst the government can bring people together, can facilitate conversations, it isn't in the business of owning and running airports, but local authorities sometimes are, and that the coming up with a credible commercial solution to how this airport can be bought and operated is one that must be locally led?
Minister.
I thank the right honourable gentleman for his expertise that he brought to the previous portfolio. I wouldn't dare to gainsay him, and I would say yes, he's quite correct.
Dame Diana Johnson.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I just say, this isn't just a South Yorkshire issue, this is an issue for my region as well, my sub-region, Hull and the Humber. But can I just ask the Minister again if she would just reflect on the fact that the emergency services that are based at this airport, including, as we've heard, the National Police Air Service, seems to me that if that is to be disrupted in any way, that might well meet the threshold in terms of the Civil Contingencies Act, and I wonder whether she would look at that again.
Minister.
The Honourable Lady would be pleased to know that when the Aviation Minister met with Peel on the 19th of October that she raised this very issue, and that she has their assurance that they will work through to ensure that there's no potential disruption for either the NPAS or 2XL should no commercial solution be available. They also were very happy to absolutely commit to meeting anybody with commercial interests and to engage with interested parties to find a commercial solution.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As has already been mentioned, Doncaster Sheffield Airport has a strategic importance as a regional airport, not only for the South Yorkshire region, but the Humber area, Lincolnshire, and as South Humber is one of the fastest growing industrial areas in the country, we need to make sure that we're protecting Doncaster Airport. Would my right honourable friend or the Minister agree with me that actually what devolved administrations are here to do is to make sure they're thinking strategically and working with business to make sure that they're helping these areas with huge amounts of development and growth as the Doncaster Sheffield Airport has had, to make sure that they are actually working strategically and not in the last few dying minutes of when commercial decisions have already been made?
Yeah.
Minister.
My honourable friend is a lady of foresight and vision, and I couldn't agree with her more.
Clive Betts.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many of my constituents really value Doncaster Sheffield Airport and want to keep it open. I would hope the Minister would, putting aside party politics, congratulate Oliver Coppard, the Mayor of South Yorkshire, for the efforts he has made on a constructive cross-party basis to engage with Peel, engage with other potential investors and try and keep this airport open. The Minister referred to my honourable friend, the member for Barnsley East, as being partisan. Doesn't she accept it looks very partisan indeed when Minister prepared to meet with members opposite but not members on this side of the House? Will she now correct that and have a joint meeting?
Minister.
I would love to meet with members on both sides of the House, but I don't hold the aviation portfolio, so perhaps he's slightly misunderstood me. Yeah, I know the Aviation Minister has met with a number of different representatives, and I'd be very happy to pass the request on. In terms of working together, I think Peel have committed to meet with anybody that can move forward with a medium-term viable commercial strategy, and I would encourage both parties to do so.
Alexander Stafford.
The loss of Doncaster Airport will be devastating across the South Yorkshire region, including in my constituency of Rother Valley. But this is not the first time Peel Group has done exactly the same thing. In the Tees Valley, they did exactly the same, but the Mayor there stepped in to save the airport. Could the Minister outline to me what different powers the Mayor of Tees Valley has compared to the Mayor of South Yorkshire? And if the Mayor of South Yorkshire can't step up to the plate, he should step down.
What I don't want to do is mislead the Honourable Member for Rother Valley. I think he makes an extremely good point, and I will make sure I write to him and get him the proper answer.
Alex Cunningham.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm absolutely bamboozled by the comments from the other side. Our smaller regional airports are in deep trouble, and Peel will not do anyone any favours at Doncaster or anywhere else. They did, however, a great deal with the Tees Valley Mayor. They got him to part with tens of millions of pounds for the loss-making Teesside International Airport a few years ago. Since then, the Mayor has had to prop it up with tens of millions of pounds more of public money. And the losses continue today as he fails to deliver on his changing forecasts of making it profitable. I'd invite the Minister to look at the numbers. It's losing millions every year. So how are ministers going to ensure that regional airports like Doncaster and Teesside can have a sustainable future without the need for further subsidies?
Minister.
I'm genuinely confused as to what he's asking for the Department for Transport to do. Does he want? He either wants to work to a solution for a Doncaster airport to survive, or he doesn't want it because it's going to require further investment from the local authority. I think what we know on this side of the House much better than the members opposite is how to generate economic growth. You know, policies such as the investment zones that were announced recently, that are currently under examination potentially to be included within the Tees Valley Airport, are the type of thing that attract businesses and drive investment in local communities.
Yes, you want it shut down, mate?
Bell.
As the Conservative candidate in Don Valley in 2017, I know how important the airport is to the people of Don Valley. And can I invite the Minister to join me in not only praising the honourable member here for doing rather better than I did 2 years later, but also for fighting an incredibly tenacious campaign on behalf of his constituents. He's been on this case for over 100 days, contrary to some of the Johnny-come-latelys on the opposition benches, and he's been shut out by the Mayor of South Yorkshire, Oliver Coppard, contrary to what the honourable member from Sheffield South East says. So will the Minister praise my honourable friend for the tireless efforts that my friend has been making, and will she make sure that she listens to the adjournment debate tonight, in which she'll set out everything he's been doing?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Not only am I listening to the adjournment debate, I have the joy and honour of responding to it. And I should imagine once we concluded both today's debate and today's question and tonight's debate, that day 105 update for the member from Don Valley will be an absolute bumper edition.
Mike Ainsbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister and I share one thing in common. That's the birthplace of our city, Manchester. And of course, Peel has a considerable presence in Greater Manchester, Merseyside, and indeed Cheshire, where my seat is. What leverage has the Minister and the Secretary of State used to ensure that Peel are effectively round the table to help our good colleagues in the likes of Doncaster? And it really would make sense for this place to actually be at its best and work together right across the piece with all parliamentarians and stop the partisanship.
Minister.
It's always good to have two Wythenshawe people having a bit of a chat across the dispatch box. I agree that we are better in this place when we work together and aren't partisan. In terms of the exact details of the meetings and the engagements that's been had with Peel, I will probably have to write to him because it's within the Aviation Minister's responsibilities. But I would note that Peel services his constituents in Cheshire within the Liverpool airport framework, and there is a positive sign for the future if that can be replicated elsewhere.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's disappointing that the Minister seems to have no jurisdiction over the matter concerned for the urgent question, but in the light that this is a really urgent issue, may I also say that she needs to get all of the stakeholders round one table and now to resolve this issue, because it will have a significant impact on the local economy across Yorkshire as well, including in York. But most importantly, it seems that this government needs a regional airport strategy in order to address the issues which we're seeing across the country.
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady for her question. I would encourage us to go back to the South Yorkshire Mayor, and I think there is an opportunity for a locally led review with the convening power from the South Yorkshire Mayor, and I'm sure that colleagues across the piece would be happy to engage with that.
Paul Blomfield.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Some of the contributions have been disappointingly and shockingly partisan. I think the Minister recognises the South Yorkshire Mayor, with Doncaster Council and others on both sides of the House, is doing everything possible to keep alive the hope of an airport. in the region, pressing for an alternative operator and with some success. But there's concern about Peel winding down key services like air traffic control, fire service, or removing specialist infrastructure like navigational beacons, making the sort of commercial solution that she talks about far less viable. So will she contact the Aviation Minister, it's a shame that neither the Secretary of State nor the Aviation Minister can be here, to urge Peel not to run down the airport in the way that they seem to be doing? Because Peel has form in switching use of airport sites to more profitable activities, having benefited from public funds in enhancing their value.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very happy to write to him on the details of where the airport is in terms of any wind down. I can reassure him that the Aviation Minister, who unfortunately can't speak here because she resides in the other place, that's why she's not here today, has assured me that she's spoken to them and that they are open to making sure that any heavy surfaces during a transition period are maintained. But I don't have the details to hand, so I'll have to write to him.
Toby Perkins.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The tens of thousands of people who signed that petition and the hundreds whose jobs are hanging by a thread will be watching these proceedings with their heads in their hands as a political blame game is emanating, rather than any sense that we have a government ministerial team who are attempting to actually save this airport. Now, it's not the Minister's fault that she doesn't hold this portfolio, but it is the Transport Secretary's fault that they're not here, because they should have been able to answer questions about this. I can't imagine another city the size of Sheffield that hasn't got an airport in all of Western Europe. So will the Minister pass on to the Transport Secretary the fury of the people of South Yorkshire and the North Midlands that this has been so loosely dealt with, and start getting hold of this, because it's impossible to negotiate with a company who have no interest in selling it, but want to hold on to it for alternative purposes.
Exactly. Minister.
And I hear the passion with which he speaks for people, and of course I understand why people want regional airports. I would gently point out to him that the member for Don Valley has been pushing this for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So the implication that nothing's happened or that people have only just been heard when that I don't think that's actually true or fair. I think we've got the Secretary of State meeting with Peel twice. We've got aviation ministers past and present engaging, but ultimately it is a commercial business in this instance, and the government does not own the airport, and we cannot compel commercial businesses, but we can encourage and suggest and get people around the table, and we will continue to do so.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister for her answers to the questions? The Minister has mentioned the important strategic position of Doncaster Airport, and all the members on both sides of the chamber have ultimately said that. The Minister has also mentioned the changing scene for small airports, and I want to, in relation to connectivity, because it's very important, the Minister mentioned it, others have mentioned it as well. In Northern Ireland we have to fight for our airline staff. Just in the last few weeks I've written to the Minister responsible for it. The removal of bodies such as Aer Lingus from UK operations, Belfast City to Heathrow, means job losses and impacts on the connectivity. What steps can the Minister, ever mindful that it isn't her direct responsibility, but I appreciate her passing it on, can to take to secure regional connectivity in all parts and regions of the United Kingdom? Thank you.
Minister.
Belfast City, I believe, is the George Best International Airport, and as a committed Manchester United fan, it would be an honour to play into it. I'm very happy to write to the honourable member with the answers whenever possible.
Olivia Blake.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To be honest, I'm disappointed with the some of the comments that have been made across the House, and I think it's on us all to work together to find a solution to this situation. Yeah. Investors have cited government inaction as a core reason why they might not be confident in investing. What does the government think about this? Do they agree that government action or inaction will have consequences for whether the airport will stay open or not?
Government action of local authorities, action of local leaders, I think is important. I would be happy to hear of any specific actions that she would like us to take to help two commercial businesses in a negotiation. And if she wanted to pass that to me, I'll make sure that the Aviation Minister is aware of it.
If the point of order relates directly to the urgent question. Point of order, Stephanie Peacock.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The member for Newcastle under Lyme said that the Mayor of South Yorkshire had shut the member for Don Valley out of negotiations. For the record, I understand that the member for Don Valley has not called the Mayor once, that the negotiation meetings are non-political. So will the member, who appears to not be in his place, he may well have misled the House inadvertently, but will he correct the record?
Point of order, further to that point of order, yes. Point of order, Nick Fletcher.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've met with Oliver Coppard on a weekly basis, but not been part of any working groups. I've continually asked throughout these past 3 months that I become part of these working groups, and have continually been shut out of these working groups. I've also been part of other groups where other MPs have been there and been told that they've been having meetings without me being there, which were questioned right at the very beginning. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I think the Honourable Lady was referring to a remark made by another Member of Parliament that I'm sure will be fed back in case there's any correction need to be made. We've heard the Member for Don Valley's view as well, so I think it's quite important that we don't just continue the debate at this point, because we do need to move on to the statement from the Home Secretary. And before I call the Home Secretary, to make the statement, may I remind members that they should not refer to any specific cases which are currently before the courts, and that they should exercise caution with respect to any specific cases which might subsequently come before the courts, in order not